There's actually a lot that goes into setting up the perfect camp. You can't just be like hiking through the woods and just when you get tired, stop, set up a tent, and sleep for the night. I mean, I guess you could, but it would probably be a really miserable night's sleep. There's like a lot of stuff you have to consider. For one, is it a safe place to camp? All right, you shouldn't be afraid out in the woods, but there's some stuff out here that will eat you. So, like before you set up your camp, take a look around. Does it look like you're in a bear's front yard? Because personally, I don't want to tuck myself into a sleeping bag like a bear burrito and try to go to sleep. So just make sure this isn't where they're living. Second, if you are at the bottom of a hill or a drainage, that's where all the coldest air is going to settle. You're going to freeze. But if you're all the way at the top of a mountain or a hill, that's where you're most likely to get some serious winds that will just ruin your night. So the best spot, if you can find it, is a nice flat spot somewhere in the middle of the hill or the mountain. And that flat thing I just said is honestly the most important thing I could tell you about setting up the perfect camp. There is nothing worse than waking up every 20 minutes because you're slowly sliding down a mountain because you didn't pick a flat spot to put your camp. And once you've found that flat spot, you can't just set up your tent and go to bed. You have to clear that of every piece of debris, every rock, every stick. All of those things would love nothing more than to just poke you in the back all night long and ruin your sleep. So clear the flat ground, smooth it out the best that you can, then you can set up your tent and you're going to have an amazing night's sleep. Now, follow me on this. If that is how much thought should go into selecting something as simple as a campsite, all right, somewhere where you're going to spend one night of your life in the woods, how much more thought should we give to how we're building our entire lives? Because let's get real, most of us are just kind of coasting through, right? I mean, you wake up, you go to school, you do whatever your parents tell you to do, and you try to squeeze in as much time gaming or hanging with friends or whatever your thing is. Then you go to bed, you wake up, you do the whole thing again, day after day. You're just kind of coasting. And I bet if I could sit down with you and just ask you directly, what are you building your life on? Most of you would probably have to give it some thought. Like you don't have that answer in your mind because honestly, you're not really building your life on anything. You're just kind of going through the motions. And our lives are far too valuable to not build them on a solid foundation.
Baseball's been a part of my life for a long time. I can't even count the number of hours that I spent on a baseball field when I was a kid. I've always loved the game. I've always loved the sights, the sounds, the smells, all of it. And when I was playing, I remember kind of becoming obsessed with getting better. You know, if I wasn't hitting as well or if I wasn't playing my position right, I would watch other people who were doing it right, who were way better than me, who maybe were even professionals. And I was trying to figure out what made them great. So I started reading about them. I started observing them play the game. And one thing kept coming up, and it kept coming up, and it kept coming up. And it was that these people who were like excellent at what I wanted to be great at, they all paid attention to the very basics. They all built their game on the fundamentals. They would take countless ground balls to make sure they knew every time a ball was coming their direction, the position they needed to be in order to field it properly. They would take countless at-bats in the batting cage so they knew what it felt like when a ball was changing speed or when a ball was breaking or if it was coming straight, how to connect it so that it would make the best possible connection. I wanted to get better, so I was observing these people. And what I learned is they were building their game on the fundamentals. You know, whatever you're into in life, that's kind of the truth of it. Most of life is gonna be lived doing the things that you just have to do from day in and day out. And when your life is built on the really solid fundamentals, you're gonna be just fine. But you're also gonna be fine when things get a little crazy. Because you know in a baseball game, there's gonna be a moment at some point when the pressure is really on. Maybe you're at bat in a pressure-packed moment where you could really make a difference in the game, maybe even win it. You know when you're in the field, There's gonna be a moment when the ball's coming your way and it's the last out of the game. And if you field it cleanly and make that out, game's over, you win. Pressure's a part of it. And if you are ready because you've built your game on the fundamentals, you're gonna be fine. You know, Jesus talked about this as well. In our lives, when we build our life on something that is solid, something that's really fundamental, our lives go better too. You know, in the book of Matthew, at the very end of chapter 7, Jesus is finishing this long message that he gave to a big crowd of people. And he was saying that, man, if you listen to the words that I have said, and then you put them into practice, it's like you're a wise person who's building their house on a rock. Because even when the rains come down, even when the wind beats and blows against it, you know what's gonna happen? That house is gonna stand firm. He also said, though, that people who hear what he said and don't put it into practice, they're like people who aren't so wise, that they built their house on something like sand, that when the rains come and the winds blow, that sand just shifts around and moves, and there's nothing solid holding the house up, so it just falls over. Whether it's baseball or it's your faith, the truth is what you build your game on or your life on matters. Build on truth. Build on what lasts, on the solid foundation of the fundamentals. It won't ever let you down.
That story Jesus told about the two builders makes me think a lot about my camping life. Actually, most things make me think about my camping life because I'm slightly obsessed. But whether it comes to where I put my tent or how I hang my food or the way I build a fire, foundations and the way you do it is critical. Like, take this fire, for instance. If I just took all of this wood I've collected and just throw it in a pile and hold a lighter to it, I'm going to have a cold, miserable night out here. No, to properly make a fire, first you have to sort of build a foundation, this protective ring around it so that you don't, burn the whole forest down. But then you have to start small. You actually have to lay down like a few small twigs that don't seem like they would do much, but the foundation you build with these little guys actually lets you put on more bigger pieces of wood that actually generate some heat. So as hard as it can be sometimes to be patient, to wait, to start small like this, it's a necessary step if you actually want a decent fire. So while this foundation is getting going, back to our friends, the two builders, what I love so much about that story is how it clearly paints this picture about our lives and what we build them on. That the one guy built his life on this basically nothing, sand, and everything fell apart. The other guy built his life on this firm, rocky foundation, and his life, quote unquote, stood. If your life is not built on anything of substance, if it's not built, as Jesus said, the point of that story, if you don't build your life on his never-changing, rock-solid truth, things are going to fall apart. And what I love is that both guys encountered storms, right? Like both of them had stuff that they didn't want, that wasn't pleasant. But one guy's life fell apart, and the other guy was able to stand. Listen, I don't know where you go looking for truth. If it's just what your friends think, if it's what the people with blue check marks on social media say, if it's whatever you think will get you the most likes, make you the most popular, whatever it is, if you are not building your life on a firm foundation, as Jesus said, his unchanging words of truth, then when storms hit, it's all going to come falling apart. And this idea of building your life on truth may sound kind of like philosophical and doesn't make a lot of sense, but essentially, if you're not weighing every decision, every thought, every question through the lens of what does Jesus think about this? What does Jesus say about this? If that's not your filter, you're building your life on sand. And when things get tough and storms come, it's likely to collapse. And so students, you're about to head to your groups. And as you head there, I want you thinking through these questions. What are you building your life on? Where are you actually going for truth? Because those are really important questions. And the stakes at play are really the kind of life you want to live. The kind of life Jesus wants for you. He wants you to have joy and peace, adventure, excitement. He has an amazing life in store for you. But if you're not building your life on truth, you're never going to get there.